There is a concentrated effort to make sure that most Americans look at firearms as evil, and anyone that owns, utilizes, is in support of the Second Amendment. Those people are not patriots or red-blooded Americans. Those people are like the racists that absolutely need to be put off the face of the planet.
The solutionary life.
Yeah.
Because we should be talking about solutions and not problems all the time.
When our lifestyle should be solutionary.
Yeah.
This is the problem. Let's throw different things that could solve this at it. Get that actual solution. Hey guys, we don't ever have to talk about this again. If we are still talking about the importance of the Second Amendment and then we already have a blueprint, we are having a problem. We're revolving around this conversation.
Right.
You know, and so that is that overall thing of, you know, what a solutionary is. We see that problem, get them solutions, let's move forward.
And you want to be an example for this, so it's like more influence, not power.
I can't run your life. I mean, I could coach you in certain areas, like you trying to get ripped, bro? Like, what, you want to change your diet? Like, there's too many X factors in your life that I'm not aware of that context. I've experienced that most of the people that don't have no discipline don't never have no freedom.
Freedom comes from the discipline.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you think if you educated more around that, then it sort of, again, takes that curiosity away, teaches people to respect them more and things like that?
The education always beats the legislation. Having firearms and informing them, the thought process of demystifying this firearm, because now I want her brain to understand it like a cell phone. It's the same, it's a tool.
Yeah, Kobe was a beast.
Yeah.
I reference him a bunch. My daughter started playing tennis and, you know, trying to get her to go put the work in and practice. She thinks she's working so hard. I'm working harder than the other kids. And I said, but they've been playing longer than you. So like, you're trying to close the gap. But like Kobe would talk about how he would play, you know, 3-4 hours earlier every day before. But he did that so he could get better than everybody. But then he didn't stop.
Right.
Because he had to stay ahead of everybody. Yeah, he was a beast. So using that sort of advice from Kobe, sort of like not win or lose, like it's just I'm focused on playing the game, I'm in the flow state. Like, how do you take that, you personally take that to that? How do you use that, and what game are you playing?
Initially, I thought I was playing a firearms and Second Amendment game. But you know, you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans type thing, right? It's really more about this overall concept of this thing that we've called the solutionary lifestyle. We have a community center in Philly, right? Where we do firearms training. Free to everybody, voluntary donations, we do it, blah, 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 blah. But then it just leads you to different paths. So you'll go, okay, I can teach somebody.
That's part of the transcendent.
Right.
Yeah.
And you go, all right, I taught this person how to put holes in bad people. Cool. There is a chance that the hole may be in a good person. Now we got to teach them how to stop the bleed. Now we're talking about blood. We're talking about heart rate. We're talking about tying a tourniquet. Now we're talking about firearms. We're talking about avoiding conflict. You're talking about all of these different things that you thought you were coming into this from a Second Amendment and firearms perspective. We're all now at like, hey, are you in shape? Can you run away from a scenario so you don't have to put holes in people or plug up holes?
Yeah.
So now it's turning into this other thing where that you think you're doing this, but it's leaning you in a direction of this, and I've just like kind of let go. Like fundraising, like our model initially was fundraising, right? We raise the money, we give it away. We raised about $700,000 to do these classes for free. We raise it, we give it away, we get the content, we do all of these different things. We obviously created the t-shirt component after that to have, you know, because it's voluntarily, but the shirts is shirts. Point being is, during the fundraising phase, especially after you've had some success, there's a different level of plateau. It's like, well, you're on shows, people know you, you probably don't need our support. And then you go, this is difficult. And when that difficulty happens, then you turn around and go, all right, why am I stressing about this? I'm doing good work, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But that problem then becomes an answer within it. Well, it's because you're not expanding and going in this direction. So for me, it just became like letting go and going, we have to have a holistic approach to the issues that are in our communities, mostly urban, because that's where I do most of our work. We got to have this holistic approach that's not just firearms related. Not saying that the firearm and the Second Amendment component is not important, or we're anti at this point.
Yeah.
It's just, what are the other things that add value in that list of those areas of human activity? And I've noticed over the last year or two, like I've been learning how to grow food. I moved to Miami for like 2 months and I was just on my homie's farm and I'm just growing food. Because, okay, cool, you can defend stuff, you can patch people up. Can you feed, like literally feed yourself from the ground?
Yeah.
And so that part of me just letting go and accepting, I know that there's tyranny, but I also know that historically, all tyrants have fallen, like all of them. It may take a while.
Yeah.
But
sometimes too long.
Sometimes too long. But it just becomes like, yo, are you being the most well-rounded and holistic version of this being to be able to be an example for other people that whichever lane they are drawn to you by, oh, you Maj, I liked your gym content. All right, cool. That's gym content. But what's your heart rate? Like, what did you eat today? How much water did you drink? You know? And so just letting everybody, just letting go, whatever way that this person or group of people shows up in your life, taking them on the other parts of the journey, but that means you have to be as equally well-rounded and consistent with that well-rounded approach. And that's really where I'm at with this solutionary lifestyle brand. Because Black Guns Matter, you know, it's been super helpful. I mean, we're cited in the Bruin decision. You know what I mean? So that's one area, but just letting go and not making your identity only be this thing.
Yeah.
That because you are way more well-rounded than the one thing that you're initially known for.
Yeah, you should be eventually, and that's the transcendence part, right? Like, and it's to your point, it's not that guns aren't important, and they don't matter.
Right.
But you realize that it's one small piece of a much bigger puzzle at the end of the day, right? So it's like, hey, work on that, but then let's go take care of these other things.
Right.
So the solutionary life.
Yeah.
That's your thing. I want to find out more about that. I like the name of it.
Yeah.
Because we should be talking about solutions and not problems all the time.
When we started it, the fun, pardon me for cutting you, everybody was saying, what you're doing is so revolutionary. And I got an etymological dictionary. I know that revolve just means we're just doing this.
Yeah.
And I don't, you know, and on a physical component, revolutions, you know, oh man, it's like the Panthers, it's like the founding fathers, it's kind of like that. And it's like, yo, revolutions can get bloody. So I don't want to initially associate it with that. Not just because I'm not capable or prepared, but it's like, yo, I get you, but our interest is not to revolve around the same issue. That's the problem. Most people just revolve around the problem.
Yeah.
So we were like, yo, our lifestyle should be solutionary.
Yeah.
This is the problem. Let's throw different things that could solve this at it, get that actual solution. Hey guys, we don't ever have to talk about this again. If we are still talking about the importance of the Second Amendment, I think we're 248 years in America, and then we already have a blueprint. We are having a problem. We're revolving around this conversation.
Right.
You know, and so that is that overall thing of, you know, what a solutionary is. We see that problem, get them solutions, let's move forward.
Yeah. The one thing back to revolutions, they're bloody, and that's not good. And I think, I mean, this may be going off track a little bit, but like, it's almost, and maybe this is part of what a conservative would be like, if we could just conserve that Constitution.
Yeah.
So it's not, we don't want to revolt against that.
Right.
Almost you would say the lefts are trying to have a revolution against that.
Yeah.
We would want to preserve that, not have a revolution against that. Would that be the way you'd look at it?
Yes, and the why is, you know, more so sometimes than the what. The why do they think that they need to revolt against this constitutional thing?
Right.
I've noticed most of the people, public servants, allegedly, right? They've never read the Constitution. They've never understood why at the articles of this, why the convening in Philadelphia twice, why these things. So they don't understand context that makes them go, oh, well, this isn't that important. Again, me in high school, I used to skip school and go down to Independence Hall and take tours. I would listen to, all of the tour guides have conversations about, like, Ben Franklin's print shop is there, right? All of this history in Philadelphia, and I would go back to my neighborhood or even my teachers and be like, yo, what are we not going to talk about this in the social studies class?
Yeah.
And the teachers used to be like, where are you getting this from? And that always stuck with me.
Why do you know that?
Right. And I'm just like, man, this is kind of like a concentrated effort to make sure that, remember that movie, The Truman Show?
Yeah.
Where he just started to recognize, like, are y'all like fucking with me?
Yeah.
And so I've recognized through that initial high school era of me going to go study different things that I'm not supposed to.
Yeah.
They didn't know. My teachers didn't know. They had a degree in a school that was like, hey, just go teach in this area and we'll give you, we'll cut some off of your student loans. They weren't passionate about the thing that they were teaching to translate it to me. And I'm just nerding out because I done sold all of my whatever, and I'm going down to downtown and, yo, this Liberty Bell, have y'all, from the movie, the Rocky thing, the steps?
Yeah.
Yo, this is like stuff. And people take for granted those things. So my point saying that is they rebel against it or revolt against it because they never understood it. They didn't get the why and the what behind it.
Yeah.
So that context was totally missing. And then when you look at the thing that is highlighted, America has a complicated history. I'm a black dude. I know that there's been complicated history and it's layered. I do think that most Americans are trying to aspire to go in a different direction, but narratives in media are very powerful. So if we don't know this context here, we don't know the why and the what was actually going on, then media goes, yo, it's because everything 100% all the time was racist and there is no gray area. It's easy for them to say, hey, maybe we should revolt against this. If I don't look at it objectively from their perspective to understand like, oh, you kind of like a dumb baby, you don't know, right? Not saying that I'm going to acquiesce to their dumb babiness. I'm just going to go, oh, you just don't get it.
Yeah.
It actually gives me a better tool to engage that community because I know that that's an education and application issue. Yeah. You don't know, so you can't apply it. So then I just show up and just start teaching people stuff. So with Black Guns Matter, I know y'all vote this way. Cool. All right. This is an educational opportunity. When I show you, hey, the Second Amendment, if media said everything is racist, did they tell you that gun control was racist? And they go, what? And I'm like, yeah, it was the first federal gun grab, the massacre at Wounded Knee. Hey, Plymouth, Virginia, those colonies were like, absolutely not. No black people can have guns. Absolutely not. And this predates the Constitution that we're now in now. And so when you give that information, I go, yeah, man, so if you don't like the system, I get it. I'm not going to argue with you. But would you want only that system that made rules and regulations that you or the people that you say you're fighting for, you're an ally, whatever you call yourself, right? Yeah. Would you want the people that you say you're fighting for to be victimized by the government because they're not exercising their constitutional rights? Does that really make you an ally? And so that educational component from a non-adversarial perspective is how we were able to be very, very successful. Because bro, you don't want a gun? Cool. I'm not tripping. Just like I'm gonna respect your right to not have one. Yo, we both Americans. If you want one later, I'm here for you. We'll give you a class. But please respect my right to be like, nah, I kind of just want one. And so the empathy component based on knowing that they don't know and then going like, all right, cool, they not my adversary. There's always an unseen hand. The money. Yeah. Like what people think is money.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
What is money? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
and now it's so much bigger than that. So the gun piece was a small piece, and so I want to get to the bigger piece. Obviously, your shirt right there, freedom above everything. Yeah. I'm guessing that's what that means.
Yeah, freedom over everything.
Freedom over everything. But just sticking on the guns for a second. I grew up in Texas. My grandfather was a big hunter, and my uncle was a hunter, and so I grew up as a young kid shooting guns.
Yeah.
And I would hear even when I was a kid that we didn't have mass shootings back then. Mm-hmm. We didn't have, there was no such thing as school shootings. And in Texas, like people drove to school with guns in their car. They took guns to school.
Right.
And we didn't have them, and that's a whole other conversation. But but there were like accidental shootings.
Yeah.
And so like kids would be curious and they'd go play with their parents' guns and they'd accidentally shoot themselves. And I just thought that me growing up around them, there was no curiosity.
Yes.
I knew exactly what they were. Yep. I was trained to handle them properly. I was trained to respect them properly. And so there was never any curiosity like, oh, let me go check it out.
Let me see what it does.
Kind of thing. And I can remember specifically being at a friend's house and they did want to pull the gun out and I was like knew enough to be like not be around them, right? Anyway, so I'm just curious your point of wanting to kind of bring that education. Is it maybe part of that? I mean, obviously guns are a problem across, everywhere. I mean, and now to the point shootings are getting more and more. Do you think if you educated more around that, then it sort of, again, takes that curiosity away, teaches people to respect them more and things like that?
The education always beats the legislation. All the time. In the 90s, we had problems with teen pregnancy. Tupac, Brenda's got a baby, right? Yeah. They didn't go, hey, if we catch you young kids having sex, we're going to put you in jail. Legislators, write it up. That's not what they did. They were like, hey, we have this sex education, like actual education, not like this weird shit that's going on right now, right?
That's another topic.
Right. But they just said, hey, parents, do you want to sign off on this?
Yeah.
And we'll teach you about the reproductive system and da-da-da-da. And almost like within a couple of years, like the teen pregnancy conversation didn't exist anymore.
Right.
There was no legislation. There was just, we're going to inform people. To your point, yes, as we continue to inform more people about the safer, my daughter, she's 8, she has a firearm in her room, in a safe, that is my vault tech, but the process of what this is and having firearms and informing them to the thought process of demystifying this firearm, because now I want her brain to understand it like a cell phone. It's the same, it's a tool.
Yeah.
And so the problem is there has been a concentrated effort to make sure that demographics across America, even if it initially started in black communities, there is a concentrated effort to make sure that most Americans look at firearms as evil, look at them as this tool that's going to turn you into a mass shooter, and anyone that owns, utilizes, is in support of the Second Amendment. Those people are not patriots or red-blooded Americans. Those people are like the racists that absolutely need to be put off the face of the planet. What they're doing is a good villain move. Like if I was a super villain, I would do it too. Because they know how to educate through propaganda. We don't use the propaganda that we have on the side of right and righteousness and justice and constitutionality and human rights. We just don't play the media game the way that the left does. I mean, they got good at it. Talk about Kobe Bryant. They have to put the reps in because they don't have substance.
Right.
So they have to be, I got to consistently lie to you and I get better at lying to you.
Yeah.
So I understand it. The key is to inform the people, not only about the safe and responsible firearms handling, but also inform the people about this is the propaganda machine and this is why they're trying to trick you.
Yeah.
You know, and that part is, I'm a point guard and I'm a translator. I can make very complicated things seem very, very simple, and they're still complex, but you can explain them simply. And when we can effectively do that, then we get some progress. That's hands down the reason why we had so much success with Black Guns Matter. I just was in those areas, explained it simply, challenged their ideas, respected them as humans, and said, yo, we're not enemies.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I'm curious your take on this because, with, again, freedom over everything, and you think about the Second Amendment, you talked about people not understanding what the Constitution was about, et cetera. And then on you're referencing the leaders, the left, whatever you want to call them, right? I'm guessing that's what you're referring to. I see that, yes, I agree, they're lying, they're gaslighting, et cetera. And a lot of what they do is they change definitions.
Yes.
And they change definitions, and so like we're actually talking about two different things, but we think we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel like they change the definitions because then they can win that argument.
Yep.
And so back to the Second Amendment, right? You've referenced many times about being able to protect yourself. And I feel that's one way that they're trying to change the definition because they could win that. So the Second Amendment, I don't believe, was about self-defense.
Okay.
It was about protecting against tyranny.
100%.
And so if they say, well, you don't need self-defense.
Yeah.
If nobody has guns,
then
you don't need to
fine.
defend yourself.
Yeah.
And the police have guns, and the police will have your back. And then they could win that argument.
Yeah.
But how do they win an argument that says, no, we need it for tyranny?
Yeah.
And so I'm curious your take
So
on that.
both arguments I get hit with both, and I have an answer for each side. When the person, because again, my job is to try to change their thought process a little bit. I can't force them, but I can at least destroy your arguments with logic. So I usually hit them with a Socratic method when it goes there. So if that person is more left-leaning, and if I know that they're like the entire system is racist, and I'll go, okay, cool. I'm not going to argue against you. I'll go, cool. I just didn't know that you were so pro-government. And they'll go, well, I'm not pro-government. And I'm like, well, you trust the government to defend you, and you trust that the government won't do the wrong thing.
Right.
And they're like, no, I don't believe that. I'm like, well, yeah. And then I start naming the names of the people that I know you're in alignment with. My job is to not make you argue whether, let's say, George Floyd is right or wrong as a human. I think he did shitty things, pardon my language. But I'm not going to argue that point to that person. I just go, well, man, you want the same government that you say is fully racist that choked George Floyd to death. you want them to be the only people that has firearms. That's a lot of trust in that government. So I don't argue against them. I just make them think more things. Now, as far as it relates to tyranny, they're very inconsistent, whether intentionally or like being manipulative. So if they go, oh, if you say tyranny, they go, well, what do you mean? The government wouldn't do that. And then I go, oh, but again, this system is racist and everybody's racist. So would that be? And I'm like, listen, even if they happen to be black, well, if the system racist and he's black cop and he works for the system, and you a white dude, man, he might be racist towards you. So wouldn't you want to have a way of defending yourself against that type of tyranny? Every argument that they have, if not met with aggression, is met with like on some low key like redirection and challenging to their thought process. Those are the ways that I get that person to concede. And if they say, well, if it's not about personal protection, it's about tyranny, I go that way. If they say it's not about tyranny, it's about personal protection, I go that way. The bottom line is I have to let them see that they're talking for the same government or the same system that they would be in opposition to. Yeah. And when I can help them put that light bulb on by inception, then they'll leave. Even if they don't agree with me in the conversation right there, that inception's already, that idea is in your brain. It's gonna keep growing. Yeah. And so both arguments is what they'll do to be intellectually inconsistent. You just have to have one already teed up. And again, reps. I've done this a bajillion times. So when they say, yo, you know, in the Constitution, they didn't mean black people. And I go, well, they didn't mention race at all in the Constitution, anywhere.
And the Declaration says the opposite, right? All men are created equal.
Right. So this is always, right, but 90-some-odd% of the time in my anecdotal lived experience, it is very much so an issue of education and application. If you meet me at the point where I can inform you and educate you, later on, I don't need credit for it. You're going to start applying it later because something will happen. And I'll give you a perfect example. I'm a libertarian, but I clearly cannot vote for Joe Biden, like regardless of whatever.
Ideology-wise, or because he's a walking vegetable?
Both. How can you be the walking vegetable that also has horrible ideology, right? He's checking all of the hell no boxes.
I'm like, whatever, 25% of people still think he should be running. And I'm just like, you shouldn't be allowed to vote. Not because ideology. You want communism, cool, but like, he's clearly a vegetable.
Obvious. Right. So anyway. I think that I'm critical of Trump in certain areas. Yeah. Now, I'm definitely not going to pick Biden over Trump. Just like anything, hotel, international travel, like it's nothing that I'm going to pick him on. Yeah. But I'm critical of Trump, and that level of criticalness, that person that I'm talking to that may be hardcore Trump in that moment, my job is not to highlight just for Trump because Biden's so bad. My job is to showcase which politicians and public servants are firing on all cylinders or most cylinders as it relates to the Constitution. So I just stay in the objective space. So when I'm critical of Trump and I say, yo, he had that sentence, man, I don't trust that sentence, take the guns first, due process later. I'm afraid of that sentence. Not to challenge the person that may be identifying as a Trump supporter or right of center. It's for me to go, hey. All of the politicians need to be held to the standard, especially on a federal level, more specifically, to the standard of this Constitution, because our founders to this nation weren't about red versus blue. They actually were like, yo, don't do party systems, and so that level of objectivity, just because I'm dunking on the left because they're giving us so much material all of the time, doesn't mean that we don't keep that same energy, because this is about the people. It's not about media or very, very powerful people. Oh, you need a hero? Oh, we'll supply him for you. Yeah. And it may not be in alignment with what you think it is, but he just looks like the lesser of two evils. And again, I'm not advocating that Trump is that. Yeah. I'm just saying our job, our highest alignment is to that truth. And the Constitution, in my humble opinion, may be up against the 42 laws of Ma'at, but the Constitution is a document that I'm just like, that system of checks and balances, pun intended, it really checks out. Yeah. And so getting people to inform that way as opposed to letting them box you. If I talk about the racist history of gun control. Because I said the word racist, it's going to be, oh, he must be a leftist, right? And then when I go, nah, that's not what Trump said. He didn't say it's fine people on both sides and that was it. Like, our job is to be almost like our men and women are on their own islands, and the island is freedom in the Constitution. So you can't get trapped by this binary. That's what's killing us. There's no context, no gray area, no nuance.
Yeah, that's a big problem in the world today. People read headlines and they think very linear.
Yeah.
And they don't realize that everything has a trade-off.
Yep.
Number one. Everything has a cost benefit, right? And then the nuance that's in that as well. And even kind of going back to Trump being critical, I don't think there's anybody, maybe short of Jesus, but anybody that you would want to be 100% for, right? Like, everybody makes mistakes and everybody does bad things. And so it's like, hey, I mostly like him. Like, I think Elon Musk has done some amazing things. There's things that I'm pretty skeptical about.
Right.
Right. And so I think...
You know who's the closest, though? The closest politician. He's a friend of mine, so for full disclosure, I'm biased.
Let me guess. Tom Massie.
100%. 100%.
He's a boss, for sure.
It's like, I'm like, dude, like...
Is that because he took that family photo, the Christmas photo, where they're all strapped up?
Listen, bro, everything. The first time I met Thomas Massie, it was years ago. It was at the 10-year anniversary for DC versus Heller.
Okay.
And we out in front of the Supreme Court, and we chopping it up. And I'm like, the Constitution and really, really good public servants and these stories from historical and all of that. I'm like a nerd for that. And I'm like, this is the dude. Yeah. This is that dude to me. And so we used to chop it up. And when I ran for city council, he graciously came and like helped fundraise for me, right?
Wow.
Yeah. And he gave this glare, because we would chop it up on social media and we would call and talk here, and I would go over to his office and little things like that. And he gave me the most, and that's not why he's like my guy in my head. Yeah. He's just very, very principled.
Yeah.
And that statement of, if I need to be on the island and everybody's going to be mad at me because I'm maintaining this constitutional principle, I think he and Rand Paul and obviously Ron Paul exhibited and exemplified that. And I asked him yesterday, I was like, yo, bro, how were you not able to get swampy, you know? And because I felt that when I was young, I mean, I was younger, but like, your environment is like a major catalyst, maybe even the most dominant catalyst for your stuff, other than maybe your habits, right? But like those things and those principles and those types of dudes, I don't think they come around very often when they're at that level of public awareness and like, you know, and huge shouts to him. He's obviously had a devastating loss. Love and light to his family. But I just... And that he's here even after that. Yeah. These are the things that like I honor as like solid dudes, right? And he's a genius, by the way. Yeah. You know, so
MIT grad.
Right. Yeah. Right. You know.
Yeah. Going back to something you said earlier, you said something about being an example for others.
Yeah.
So, you know, you talked about starting with a small piece, the gun piece, but now it's grown into a bigger thing, solutionary. I love that, right? Let's focus on solutions, not problems. Yeah. It doesn't do a lot of good to continually rehash the past, right? Like, let's build towards solutions or whatever. But anyway, going back to this, like, be an example for others. Yeah. And that's sort of, you know, put the mask on yourself before you help your neighbor kind of a thing, right? But I think it's also, you know, where, you know, someone asked me a while ago, like, how do you know you're on the right side? And I had to think about that one for a while. And I said, because I believe in like live and let live, like you go do you, but they want to tell me what to do. Right. And that's the problem. So going back to that, right, they want the power over you. And you want to be an example for this. So it's like more influence, not power.
Yeah, I'm not interested. This is a Ron Paul line. I don't care. Like, I can't run your life. I mean, I could coach you in certain areas, like you trying to get ripped, bro. Like, what, you want to change your diet? Yeah. Like, but like, I have there's too many X factors in your life that I'm not aware of that context. Right. The influence is really more so just like, okay, here's blueprints. Like, there's certain things that if you exercise financial, social, cultural, dietary discipline, these will be the outcomes by and large. The problem
that's money, relationships, and health?
Yeah. It just happens to be those things. Okay. Right? There's like you gotta go out of your way to really mess up that formula for that formula to not work. I just want to influence people for the formulas and the blueprints that work. Like, I just finished reading Dalio's book again, Principles. And okay, this makes sense because I remember selling this. Oh, I suck at this, da-da-da-da. You know what I mean? Those loops. And so these are blueprints. And if you have a constitution, you have here are the basic rules of firearm safety. If you don't drink soda every day, right? These are the things that I just want to influence you to do those things. Now, I can't make you. And I could, but you'd have to pay me tuition because I'd have to really, really be on top of you. I don't think that the general public would not implement those things if they weren't consistently being told to just eat the sugary stuff, to just don't learn anything. The scab will heal if you stop picking at it.
Yeah.
There are entities, and I'm leaning more towards that this may be more even spiritual because I don't know a better word for it. There are entities that are 100% going to try to make you keep picking at the scab, as opposed to let's just leave them alone and they heal. The influence on my part is to just make people do things that are going to just heal and then grow from that healing.
And by leading by example. And
leading by that example and just going we got a solutionary group where we just chop it up. I wake up at 3:30 every morning. I work out. Yeah. I'm going to drink a minimum of a half a gallon of water every single day. Yeah. I'm not gonna drink sugary stuff all of the time. And I keep going back to sugar because it's 6 times as addictive as cocaine.
Yeah, it's horrible.
So there are people or entities and energies that are no, just drink the soda. And water's horrible. It has no taste. There are people doing that. And so that influence and being that example, people will follow it much more. I can tell you what to do, but if we in the gym together and I'm pushing you through them reps, we in this dogfight together, and I think that is more leader than boss. The boss energy is I'm not a fan of it. I'm more of the energy of, now obviously it's chain of command and things got to get done, but I'm just a fan of just do it by example. I got to be at the booth over here moving shirts. I have to walk around with the brand. I have to show good economic and spiritual discipline. I have to do those things. Otherwise, you are the intellectual inconsistency. You're it. You're literally it.
Yeah. Well, think about how we opened up this conversation talking about Kobe.
Yeah.
and being influenced by his work ethic.
Right.
He lived it.
Yeah.
Harder than any of us could ever live it, but that influences us. It motivates us, if you will, to go do that. We saw the work he put in and the results he had, and you're well, I guess I could work harder and have better results. I'm curious on two different things. We can address them one at a time, but we have a massive increase in crime across the country. Mm-hmm. And that's in California with theft under $1,000 all the way to, shootings, right? So all kinds of crime.
Well.
At the same time, we have a rise, a rapid, seems like increase in crime happening in the United States. Down in El Salvador, they went from the most dangerous nation in the world to the safest nation in the world. So we're seeing maybe, the rule of law, the United States, the foundation of freedom, becoming the most dangerous place, and then we have the most dangerous place becoming the most safest place. Mm-hmm. I'm curious your thoughts on that.
The money, the changes in culture, the money, the propaganda. If I can tie all of that into money, and I can tie all of that into culture. Okay. Now, what's happening is I am of the belief, and I have no proof of this. It's just the vibe and watching things. It's too well timed in all of those different areas of lanes at the same time for it to be accidental. The sun is going to rise at the same time, depending on where you are on Earth. Yeah. That's a highly organized phenomenon.
Right.
When it's this much right there, I know that government generally becomes really stupid, but it's almost, you guys are really bad at the same time for me to not think that there's a few evil geniuses somewhere.
Right.
So in America, we didn't inform people. Also, we're a republic that damn near, we're an empire at this point.
Right.
And your empire, it's a couple years left type energy, right?
250 years, it's almost up.
It's almost up. And so all of these cycles. So the cycles along with the lack of information and the lack of application. The information is there. The information is there. We know through dynastic periods and empires, hey, empires usually fall when they do this list of things. And if you do this list of things, it's like the workout in reverse.
Yeah.
And so seeing all of that, and then countries that have been through that ugly portion of the cycle, and they are kind of like, well, we can't do that. We already printed everything, all of the bread. Like, we've already did all of this. Same thing like Argentina. Hey, guys, we got to try something else.
Yeah.
Well, maybe this Bitcoin thing might not be so bad. And then, okay, cool. Then you got us like, we got to slash government. We got it afuera. It's gone.
Afuera, that was great.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so we need those people here in America with this solid constitutional republic that we have. We need those people to say, no, I'm getting rid of this. This is a waste of time. It's like we just don't want to do like an audit, like our own audit of like, yo, this is bad policy. And it just translates in every lane. Education, bad policy. Culture, bad policy. With a great foundation, money, bad policy. And so when you do all of those things, my Jewish homie, I'm thinking about converting, right? I've been talking about it for a while. My Jewish homie is like, I'm like, yo, what do you think is the reason why economically and culturally, he's like, oh, we don't separate. Our economics, our culture, and the politics are all the same.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. So now when I look at that and I go, man, if they're doing something and they're showing success in this, that big three, and then I look at what's happening in the rest, in America, you guys are doing the exact opposite in the big three.
Yeah.
It's almost, I don't know the answer of the word, but it has to be spiritual. I don't know another word that incompetence could not be this exact at the same time.
Well, I believe it is. I believe it's spiritual.
Yeah.
It has to be. I mean, I think, and I think culturally people are waking up to this because you can see there's evil.
Yeah.
Like, you can see it.
Yeah.
Look what's happened to the kids.
Right.
I mean, it's evil.
Right.
And if there's evil, then there has to be good. So then it has to be spiritual, right? And I think before, maybe it wasn't as bad, so maybe there wasn't evil. Some people were just bad, but now it seems a lot more apparent. Yeah. But going back to the Jewish thing for a minute, right? Like in the Bible, and Jesus used money as one of his lessons, like more than any other thing he talked about, right? Yeah. So the money is a big piece of it, and then there's living by a moral code. Yeah. Right? And whether that's Mormon or Jewish or Christian or whatever it is, but at least there's like some moral code that people get behind. And you mentioned earlier, like, I can tell you what to live, or we can lead by example kind of a thing. And so it's like, you can't really legislate morality. Yeah. And so like, I can basically put you in a box so you can't hurt anybody else, but I can't really legislate it. And so I guess then, I didn't think of this, but tying it back to the original question, which was, we see the rise of crime happening everywhere. But then El Salvador is lowered down crime. And so, incentives, I guess if we remove, if it's no longer criminal to steal up to $1,000, then people probably steal up to $1,000, right? It's like,
wait, are you at 998, bro?
Oh, yeah.
All right, we good.
998. How many times can I go back there?
Right.
So then there's incentive systems, but at the same time, what makes all these people want to go wild out just because they can?
Right.
And so then you have kind of both, and there's the morality and the legislation piece to it.
I just think that if people kind of like, legislatively, the Constitution is solid, bro. Morally,
you can't have the freedom without the responsibility.
Right. And that moral component of going like I'm a fan of ostracizing people for doing morally repugnant stuff. Mm-hmm. I am a fan of it. Matter of fact, I'm going to shame you. I'm going to be like, yo, you're a clown. If you're a law enforcement officer and you're not upholding your oath to the Constitution, that's clown vibes, bro. Yeah. And equally, when there's a law enforcement officer, homicide detective, is like, I found out who killed your child. I want to champion that person. The moral code is being eroded by massive media campaigns, and we, with dwindling financial, strength and all of these other different things, are not then going, hey, we got to double down on stepping the morality game up. Yeah. We got to, the reason why it's connected as the person, maybe not government issued, but the reason why it's connected is because there's a form of discipline. Religion means to retie to. I have to retie myself to these disciplines because this will make me a better person. So for example, if I go, I am not going to be a glutton. I'm not going to overeat. So now my body is healthier, which means I'm taking care of this temple for longer, this amazing gift that I got from God, and I'm here to inform my family for longer.
Right.
Now that discipline translates into, hey man, don't overspend. Don't do it. Just don't.
Self-control.
Self-control. These are all tied into moral disciplines.
Yeah.
You know, and then when you're talking about the Constitution, we got to have a system of checks and balances. I get it. All 10 of y'all want to do this thing, and I want to do this. You guys don't just get to mob rule over me and call it democracy because I just want to do this and y'all want to do that. We have to have that system of checks and balances where that individual's right is respected, which is a form of discipline. Nah, we don't just get to we ain't a monarchy.
Yeah.
Saying all of this to say the general public is not being bred into disciplines, trades, skills. These are disciplines. This is the difference between a Kobe Bryant and a Kwame Brown. And I'm not saying that to diss Kwame Brown. Kwame Brown was on a team with Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. He's not a legend.
Right.
And so you have to make these individual choices and decisions to say, I want to improve my community by, again, being that example, but I'm exercising so much discipline. Yo, Maj, what you doing? Oh, it's 1 o'clock. I have to take a 20-minute nap. Why? Because I wake up at 3:30. Yo, Maj, it's 4:30. What are you doing? I am getting ready to go back and get my baby ready for tennis camp. Why is that important?
Yours too.
Huh?
Yours too.
Right.
My daughter's playing tennis too.
See what I'm saying? And it's like, yo, and when they're in it, they're passionate about it because it's fun, but there's so many lessons that you see for them in that.
Yeah.
And that's important for me to make sure, because now she gets to live that example. So, because she ain't gonna be in the gym with me doing deadlifts.
Yeah.
The point being is, we have failed to recognize the importance of all of these things being interconnected. When we talked earlier about that Planck scale, it's the same stuff at the quantum level. So this discipline, this thing, when it bubbles up into the physical world, it's then going to be held to a standard of, immutable physical laws, but you get that from good, solid foundations. We aren't explaining it properly. If we're not explaining it properly, and those entities are deliberately trying to make the Tower of Babel so we don't communicate well with each other,
right,
then nobody can apply it. What's in it? Who talked to, what book was that? Outwitting the Devil,
okay,
by Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
He kind of talked, that interview with the devil in that book talks about that. Like, all you got to do is not drift, stay focused, and stay on the task. But if we don't even know that drifting exists because somebody's saying no, just drift, go ahead, this is life, right? As somehow discipline is contrary to freedom. I've experienced that most of the people that don't have no discipline don't never have no freedom.
Freedom comes from the discipline.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the freedom comes from the discipline. Most people don't understand that. There was a book written called The E-Myth, the entrepreneurial myth, and people think, I'm going to quit my job and start my own business so I can be free. But then they end up being more of a slave, right? And you have to set the systems and the discipline to have that freedom. But last topic is, you mentioned that, there's a lot of these disciplines that have to kind of come together, money, maybe spirituality, things like that. And so going back to the money for a minute, and you mentioned maybe the difference between the U.S. and El Salvador is the money as well. And so, when I think about the freedom movement, the libertarian movement, things like that, right? I hope that we can get a better leader, and I hope that they won't go against the Constitution. And there's all these things that are hope, but you mentioned immutable, right? And so we have Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is this immutable technology that no one can control. And maybe it's a way to limit their power by taking away their unlimited checkbook, if you will, right? So never-ending wars, lockdowns, or whatever that is. I'm curious your take on Bitcoin.
My community center in Philadelphia has a Bitcoin ATM machine in it. I'm in the hood.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, bro, y'all the people that come to the shop and they want to get a T-shirt or something, I'm like, hey, you get 10% off if you buy it in Bitcoin.
Oh, really? You do?
And then they'll go, well, I don't understand it. And I make them download a simple wallet, like super basic wallet.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, just do this. And I'm like, okay, you would have paid me $25 for the shirt, right? All right, cool. And then I'll walk them through the process. Download the wallet, walk them through the process, boom, boom, boom. Now when they have other things, or they want to take a class, or they want to get some training, I'm like, yo, pay for it in Bitcoin. Then, knowing that they should hold Bitcoin and they don't really know it yet, after a while, that other light bulb kicks and they go, bro, why am I paying you in Bitcoin, bro? And then they start to become more disciplined with their spending.
Why do you want the Bitcoin?
Right.
Maybe I should want the Bitcoin.
Right.
Yeah.
So I like set up for that because I'm not, you know how people say they're like a crypto whale. I'm not a whale. And I actually don't have a tremendous amount of knowledge around the subject. I can simplify things though. When I go, every single time somebody took power from a super powerful thing, agency, whatever, to me, banking cartels are very, very powerful.
Yep.
So if somebody starts taking power away from them, and I just look and juxtapose it. I remember when Napster came out, and everybody was like, the people were like, oh, this is awesome, right? The music spreads, the artist gets more concerts because people are like, oh, that song by that dude, because we're sharing or whatever. Then I remember how the recording industry was like, we are going to destroy you, Sean Fanning.
Yeah, they hated it.
Right. Then I remember it with Pirate Bay, with DVDs. I sold DVDs. I remember them going after those dudes. Those dudes were like in Sweden. And the United States was like, yeah, we're still going to come holler at you.
Yeah.
My point in saying that is, if Bitcoin being that transference between I can create, store, and transfer that wealth person to person without these other entities, I start to go, maybe the hood should get a jump on this.
Yeah.
Because traditionally, again, and when I say hood, I don't just mean black communities. If you do not live in a really, really nice neighborhood, you probably live in a hood, suburban, rural, urban, whatever.
Yeah.
That sound monetary supply can be the revolution that's not bloody.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And
Exactly.
so for my mind, I'm like, yo, the hood definitely need to get on this. And so I'll just inform people that way by just getting the machine, putting it there, and people go, yo, what's this?
Yeah.
I want to practice inception and influence. And then the information is there, and then I know that you're going to run into a different question for me later. If we're in a gym, it's the same thing. If we're in a gym, you're going to say, yo, why do my arms hurt? Or why do my legs hurt 2 days after we did legs?
Yeah.
Oh, here's why. And what should potassium. I got you some coconut water.
Yeah.
You know, so this may be, and I'm not saying this to like hype it up, bro. Like, you already know, but the viewers may need to rehear this. Bitcoin may single-handedly be the thing that saves this republic. As like grandiose as that sounds, and when you watch the powers that be that are doing the media propaganda on it, I'm like, wow, y'all are really, really intimidated by that.
Yeah.
I wonder why. For the same reason why somebody else will go, Maj, why you want the Bitcoin? Why I can't?
Yeah.
What are you going up? Man, bro, every time I do this, and then those lessons come. And so I think that, I hope that we don't all the way crash out, because again, I am a high school dropout. I have a GED, but I kind of nominally understand things.
Yeah.
I don't know how bad it would be if at the same time the most powerful nation in the world, maybe in world history, the reserve money that falls during a time when that entire nation is going through a cultural, economic, and social upheaval or degradation, I am afraid, and I choose my words very carefully, of the international impact of that on war, on, I'm afraid for that. So I think that more and more people being involved in Bitcoin and sound monetary choices, or not monetary in that sense, but like not fiat, but I'm hopeful that more people will get in, so I'm willing to do my part to inform the people that are traditionally not involved in that conversation, as well as respecting the fear. When that gut feeling start kicking up and going like, bro, we got to kind of do something about this, because there's never been a time where like this goes good with what we're doing. And maybe we're the exception, possibly, but history doesn't say that we get through that smooth.
Right.
You know, so maybe Bitcoin will be the bloodless revolution.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Cool. Well, wrap it up with that.
Yeah.
Good stuff. A lot of good takeaways from this, but the one I would say probably is just, you know, live it, be the influence,
Yes.
be the change, and not by telling people what to do,
Yeah.
but by demonstrating it.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And empowering people to focus on solutionary rather than problems.
Right. 100%.
Yeah. Cool. All right.
All right. Appreciate you,
Thanks
bro.
so much.
All right. For sure.